Welcome to Respec Games, where we respect games. This is Tell. This is Polow. I'm Polow. That's Tell. And we are Respec Gaming. Thank you so much for listening. And welcome to episode 3 of Respec Gaming. The gaming podcast is brought to you every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Central Time.
What's up? We here for episode 3. It's crazy to be here.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited. We got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. A lot of important stuff. And I want to start that important stuff off with, I guess we can go right into with respect. I just want to give a with respect to our community, bro. Like the community we are already forming, and most of them are coming from Mic Check, Wife with Giant Anime Podcast. For those of you that don't know, they're coming over from Mic Check, Wife, and they're just being so gracious and nice to us. And it's been so much fun. Also, like, shout out to Kilo. He's going to be a part of the show a little bit later. And shout out to Rob Stone for giving us feedback, because if you do listen to Mic Check, and if you do support us on our Patreon over at Mic Check, we have a pre-show before every episode where we share our thoughts and share how we feeling and just talk about our life. And we talked about, like, we gave ourselves feedback on episode 2 of Respect Games. And what we came to the conclusion of is that in episode 2, while I do believe it is a great episode, still, there is some things that we can change, we can improve, we can make better. And that's exactly what this is going to be about. Just constantly improving, getting better, leveling up, if you will. Because
respecting our stats.
Respecting our stats, exactly. So we decided to, and here's some of the feedback that we talked about, but we decided to go a little less rigid with the structure of the show, because we know we wanted Respect Games to be a structured podcast, but instead of it being too rigid and too stiff and kind of just reading off bullet points and lists and articles, we're going to have more of a conversational piece, but they're still going to be brought to you by topics and articles and just different bullet points, etc. But we're going to give more of our perspective on these thoughts, like diving deeper into the thoughts on what we think about the news and diving deeper into what we think about or what we have been playing in Vertical Slice, and diving deeper into some of the new and upcoming releases, instead of just listing them off and reading them off, because anybody can go Google this stuff and find it out on their own. You're mostly here for our personalities. So we're going to bring more of that out in Respect Games, starting off with episode 3. So Tell, with respect again, my badge goes to our community, to Kilo for participating and dropping us 2 very important news articles that we're going to talk about today, as well as a comment we're going to read shortly after Vertical Slice.
And to piggyback off what Polo just said, my respect badge also goes to our community, because we appreciate you being here while we develop what we're doing here. We spent a lot of time on Mic Check, Wife, and how much we love it. It shows in that podcast and how the communication and everything actually flows there. And that's what we're doing here. We're going to make sure that the flow and the efficiency is there. While keeping it neat and organized, you want to make sure that you actually get to see the experiences and whatnot that we have with gaming and everything like that, while also getting some of your insight on that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm excited, I should say. It's going to be exciting. It is exciting.
It is.
All right, moving on. Vertical Slice, Tell. This week for Vertical Slice, if you don't mind me starting. I remember last week I talked about how I wanted to do the Is It Worth It series by going back to old MMOs with some of my other gaming buddies over in the Mile High Club Discord. And I ended up just going back because one of our good buddies, Multipurpose, was playing Guild Wars 2, which is a game that came out in 2012, and I bought it on launch. I was super excited to play it back in 2012. As soon as I bought it, because I bought the disc version, as soon as I bought it, I sent a picture of it to Tell, like, hey, man, let's get in on this. And he ended up grabbing it as well. And I played about, if anybody's familiar with the MMO, I only got to level 18. That's nothing. That is absolutely
the first day.
Nothing. Yeah. So, and I turned it off because in 2012, I was outside. I was doing a lot. I had a lot of fun. But over the years, I slowly came back and played a few times. Like when they released their very first expansion, which I believe was 3 to 5 years after launch. I played a little bit of it, and they had something called a level boost, and you could boost your character up to max level, and that was overwhelming. I turned it off again. But recently I got back into it again, and it's been an absolute addiction. It's just been so much fun going back. I decided to start on the character that I already had on my account that was super low level and just level it up through the story like I was a brand new player and just experiencing it like I was new again. And when I tell you, it is so much fun. It's tap target combat, but it's tap target combat is just more engaging, more actiony than just normal Final Fantasy 14, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. It's just been so much fucking fun playing Guild Wars 2 that I cannot stop. So for my vertical slice, I've been playing so much of it. I completed the base story of Guild Wars 2, and then they have something called the Living Seasons, which they add over time. They added more content by adding these living seasons, which is getting very interesting. But the story is there, man. It's really, really good. It's almost Final Fantasy 14 level story.
What I find so interesting about Guild Wars 2 and this Polow shenanigans is that my brother here, y'all see him on the screen if you're watching the video version, but you've heard him. He quite literally told me to get this game. I get the game. We're playing it, and then I never see him play it again.
I know. So wrong.
What is going on? Mm-hmm. But then I also remember him sliding back and getting back into it again. I start playing it again. And this time I remember vividly playing it by myself because Polow was not online for at least a week or something like that.
Yeah, it was yeah.
And I'm like, come on, man. But it's good to see because I got to see that, he actually has been grinding and whatnot. Multipurpose has been playing it for quite a bit. Yeah. Actually, it looks like I think it's been the last couple of weeks or so.
Yep. And he's been playing it way different than I have. Like he boosted every character that he played, and this is his first experience with Guild Wars 2. And he's having a whole different experience than I am right now. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. I do want to say also, we did talk about having, during our pre-show on My Check Waifu, having one-on-one conversations with some of our friends in gaming, like interviews, style stuff. And I talked to Multipurpose about it, and he said he's down to do it. And I wanted to talk to him about the way he played games because it's so different than the way we do. Because me and you, I believe, are very well, no, let me just say me. I don't want to speak for you. I am a very story-oriented person when it comes to all games. It don't matter what they are, even MMOs. I try to enjoy the story. And if the story is too, with respect, not good, then I just kind of like skip past it. But I try my best to be invested in whatever story I'm getting involved in, no matter the game. And he's like, not for it. Until he got into these expansions, which he's in now, the later expansions, because he heard that they were actually really good. But yeah, he's a very interesting player that I can't wait to have that one-on-one conversation with him. And we're going to post it on our YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe over at youtube.com/@RespectGames.
I do think that's actually a funny statement, though, because when I think about it, now that I actually think about it, funny enough, for turn-based games, I'm all into the story.
Of course, yeah.
I'm like dialed in. Yeah. And for other games when it's action-oriented, like maybe it's because my brain is listening, but I'm like watching what's happening while the game is playing or whatnot. I don't quite listen, but like Mass Effect, I was dialed into the story. You know what I mean? And that wasn't turn-based. So yeah, I think it depends on the game, but I feel like every console game I play, PC game, I'm in the story. Phone games sometimes, not always, but like the turn-based ones are always. Yeah, MMOs. Yeah, I haven't really. I still got to add that to my library.
And to be honest, most people don't. Most people skip MMO stories because they're just trying to get to wherever the end game is. But
right,
it's actually, for me, I've been enjoying what I've been playing of the story. Like I said, I said it over in the other Discord, but I would give the base story of Guild Wars 2 about a 7. It's not great, but it's also not terrible. So
right.
I would give it a 7 because the thing about the story, and spoilers for Guild Wars 2 base story, you had 15 years to play it or however long it's been. It's very, we talked about this in the anime podcast, but it's very for the sake of. And again,
I knew you was about to say that,
bro. I'm telling you, this story. What they do is they introduce these really extremely dope characters. They're like fighting. They're fighting a horde of people by themselves, and they're just killing everything. Rah rah rah. Then as you get to the instance where you're fighting together with this person, you're fighting through mobs and mobs of people, and then they die. And then the next character, they do the same thing, they introduce them again. And they're fighting really hard, and they're really tough, and they're really strong, and they seem like they're going to be a very important character, and then they die again. And it's so unceremoniously, like such a unceremonious death that it's just like, but why?
It's almost like a disrespect to the character, almost.
Very much so, man. Yeah, wow. Like give a little respect to these characters. They're very good characters, well-written characters that just get the axe almost instantly from the time they're introduced. And to be fair, it's mostly based off of my character's decisions, because my character is voiced in Guild Wars 2. So I do stuff like, hey, let's separate. Let's go 2 different ways. And then you focus on this and I focus on this. And then while they're alone, they die. It's like, come on. Anyway, but I'm addicted to Guild Wars 2 and I'm having a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing more of that this week.
So, I mean, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to play it.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But I actually do enjoy watching it. And I say that because I have played Guild Wars. And I mean, I'm not going to say I played a ton of it, but I played several hours of it, right. To get a decent taste of it. I would say it's not, I played more, I was about to say Blade and Soul. I played more Black Desert, but I do think that Guild Wars was a game that I would have liked had I been playing it. With a group at that time. And that's what I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's what we plan on doing. Like I streamed it the other day. I got a couple of people for my stream. They got it. They're playing it again. So what we're going to do is we're going to get together a group of people and start doing fractals is what they call like their tough dungeons. So we're going to be doing raids and stuff too. So it's going to be some really dope content. Twitch.tv/Polow. Okay. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead. We'll be there. So my Vertical Slice is a demo game I actually played, and this demo it's so cool. This is like a really cool concept for a game when I saw it, and I feel like I didn't really get a good explanation on it because I saw a trailer for it, and I saw that the demo was out, and I immediately went to go see it. All right, let me check it out. It's a turn-based roguelite game, and the combat is word oriented. So how it works, and the game itself is called Wanderstars. It looks very DBZ-esque, like a retro 90 Dragon Ball anime based game. But what essentially how it works is, let's say you throw a kick. You can add the word super to the kick to give the kick an extra point of damage. Now, if you add special to it, it gives it an extra 2 points. So you can do a super special kick. Then you can do a super special fire kick, and it adds elements based off the words you have. So basically, and you find out what your enemies are weak against based off what words they're weak against, and you stack damage to those words to do more damage to the enemies. I'm like, yo, this is really cool.
Yeah, it looks like you build a word deck.
Yes, you build a word deck, and those words essentially play out how you're going to fight. So you can use bats, you can use your hands, and you essentially you have a couple of different ways to build your deck in this game, right? So what they have is they have your words, which you'll gain just by playing the game, and they have what's called a pep up. The pep up is when you beat someone in a fight without necessarily knocking them out. So let's say their ratio, if you get them between 2 to 4 health, you can hit a piece. If you hit the piece, you leave the fight and you gain their respect, and they give you a pep up, which can boost other words or stats in your combat style, or even like how you progress across the map. Or let's say, for instance, there's a harder one where it's like the pep up where you can hit a piece out is between 4 to 8. So you don't want to do too much damage, but you don't want to do too little damage.
Yeah.
So because they also hit really hard, and they do seem to hit much harder than you, at least from my about 30 minutes playing, right? They seem to hit significantly harder than you do. But what I really like about it is the thought provokingness of it, right, bro? It is and it does look really interesting. Now the characters are not voice acted, right? Mm-hmm. And mind you, this is just a demo. The game I don't think the game is. And is it complete? I don't think it's complete.
It comes out soon, and then we'll talk about that later in the upcoming. Yeah,
it does come out soon, but the main character, while she's not necessarily going to be a character I would say would be my favorite kind of character, the way that you interact with the world and even the creatures you fight, because they're not all human as creatures. I think one of the creatures I fought was a giant crab, and you meet a wolf who is also one of the main characters.
Okay.
But the concept of it is so cool, and that's what really tied me in, because I was thinking about, I really love these turn-based games. I love how they work. I love how they take different, and they're all, I feel like all turn-based games have a similarity to them, right?
Yeah.
But this was such a unique take on it.
Right. I mean, so the one thing I noticed about it, the tagline is "Play an anime," which is I find ironic. But what I noticed about it is that, okay, how can I say this? There's two things that I like about it. I like Darkstyle's fire, and I like the deck building of the words. I love that.
Now, I will say this, with the roguelite portions of it, I don't think you necessarily lose the words. I think you lose the pep ups,
Sure.
which you get from fighting the enemies, which I can understand how, like, you've built a deck around, like, let's say fire or elemental damage, right? And you lose that pep up. While you didn't lose the words, there's still elements to and it's also episodic. So every episode, which I believe there's going to be 10 episodes, each episode being about an hour long, right? You'll have each episode to go through, what essentially how you're building your gameplay through that one, and then you go to a new episode, and each episode is that roguelite session. Now, I can also understand how that could be disheartening, because you lose that progression in a sense, while you gained other bits of experience throughout the game. You do lose that, but I actually go ahead, bro.
I say this, and this is just me being again jaded, so forgive me, but with respect, I say make every roguelike like Hades, the greatest roguelike of all time. Hades has exactly what I'm mentioning when I say a overarching story to attack. You know what I'm saying? Something that draws you in and just brings you a part of the world, and it builds on the roguelike or light aspects of the story. You know what I'm saying? Or something what's the one I played? There's one I played on Vita, and I can't remember the name of it now because I just thought about it. But it's like you play as your ancestors, and you, like, each ancestor has a different ability. Like, you have an ancestor that uses a sword and shield, an ancestor that uses a wand, but it still had a overarching theme to it that I enjoy. This looks like, and again, I haven't played it, so forgive me if I'm speaking out of my tush here, but it doesn't have much of a story. It's just the experience, which is incredible.
There is a story, though.
Okay.
And I'll say this, like I said, I haven't uncovered the whole story, but essentially what it is that they are trying. So Wolf, I didn't get a chance to play with him yet. I was just getting to that point. But basically what it is Ringo is traveling essentially she's going to be a key fighter. So she's trying to join this tournament.
Like a professional fighter, it looks like.
Yeah. She meets up with Wolf, who is in search of this map. She finds out that it's in this necklace that she has. Part of the map is in the necklace. The map leads to each new piece of the map. But essentially what it's going to do is it's going to have them uncover their backstories.
Okay.
Or their past. It's going to have them come face to face with things that they've experienced in their past. Hers being her older brother, who seemingly has left, but also is a master fighter.
Okay.
But we also don't know. I don't know anything about Wolf yet, but I do know that we're going to be traveling in search of these maps or pieces of the map to uncover basically what's going to help them get to their past and uncover that story. So there is a story.
It is there. Yeah, because
I haven't gotten there yet.
I just found another trailer that does have more story from the one I looked at before. Seems to have just been gameplay, which it was unlabeled, which would have helped if they would have labeled it as just gameplay. But no, looking at the the other trailer, it has like almost like a visual novel aspect to it. Okay, now I'm interested. Now I'm into it.
Yeah. But that's also the thing I was saying, is that the story isn't absent. And while I do think that the game, what is cool about the game is that, yes, it is very pick up and play, that from the bits that I did encounter, and I think that, so when you see, you might have saw the grandma,
yeah,
she seems pretty interesting, and there are characters in there who seem interesting, seem dynamic, who, like I said, I've only experienced 30 minutes of the game, that I want to uncover more information about them. And on top of that, I do want to uncover more of this combat system, like
I saw
how I can really get progressive and change some things up.
Yeah, I saw something in the trailer, and I just paused it right at the perfect spot, which is great. But I saw something here that says she has 4 words right now, and the 4 words are super dragon wide kick.
Yep.
Like, just imagine the dragon kick being, no, sorry, it's special dragon wide kick. But imagine you doing this dragon kick that's I guess keyed up or charged up like a Super Saiyan, and it's wide, so that means it's doing AoE damage instead of single target damage. That, dude, it's so good. That's so
exactly
good.
What it is. It's super increases damage. Special increases damage. Dragon is an elemental effect, I believe, and then it's a dragon kick. Well, yeah. Either way, it's crazy. But there's also other elements to it where when you build up your gauge, you can press a button and you can add another word to your layer. So you can go from 4 words to 5 words, but it costs meter. But it's overall, it's a really cool concept, and I can't wait to actually play more. Yeah, bro. I know I'm gonna spend some hours in this game. It's gonna be there for me.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. The only issue I have with it is that it's on Nintendo Switch, and I'm
playing it on Steam.
Oh, it says it doesn't. Okay, so it releases on Switch first. It doesn't come to PC till a later date.
Okay, yeah, I was playing it on Steam.
Okay, well, when PC hits, definitely playing it there for sure.
For sure. I didn't even look that it was on Steam. I was literally playing it right here.
Yeah. So let's address the community real quick, Tel. Shall we?
Okay, let's do that.
So we're going to address the community and bring in one of our listeners. Shout out to Kilo, who supports us over at Mike Check as well. But Kilo says he commented on last week's episode on the YouTube video. Last week we talked about game genres. What was it? Game genres that we need.
Game diversity, things that we want to add to our palette and library.
Yep. Game diversity is things that we want to add. So he brings up into that YouTube video and says, I think for me, a genre I would like to get into is MMOs as well. The people who plays them like Final Fantasy 14, WoW, Elder Scrolls, effing love them. And he talks so highly of them. But watching the gameplay, it looks extremely boring to me. Another thing keeping me away is the thought of trying to catch up to the current story and playing through the years of content is overwhelming. Especially, I don't have as much gaming time as I used to. So, I mean, to be fair, let me just talk about what I just experienced in Vertical Slice with Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2, again, has been out since 2012. It don't look the best. It looks like it's from 2012. However, taking it and playing it at your own pace is the best way. So the games you mentioned specifically, Final Fantasy 14 and Elder Scrolls, are probably the 2 games, if you get into MMOs, would be the MMOs that you should get into, because those offer more of a single player capable type of story. WoW, not so much. WoW is more of a traditional MMO that requires time, effort, people, etc. That'll be a little bit overwhelming. But Final Fantasy 14 is Final Fantasy 14 is like playing Final Fantasy game in general. Now, as far as it looking boring to you, I can get that. And I say this a lot, like as a streamer, I always say, I don't want to stream Final Fantasy 14, even though it's my favorite MMO of all time, because I feel like it looks boring to watch, even though the Twitch community is there and people watch it. But they mostly watch it to chill and talk to people, not necessarily that, because it's all about the gameplay of it. But the story in Final Fantasy 14 is just like playing any other Final Fantasy story. It's probably one of the best Final Fantasy stories you would play if you did play it. And then to go to Elder Scrolls has a more action combat, but it's an Elder Scrolls game. So there's a lot of story there, a lot of content. And again, if you just take those games and play them at your own pace until you, even if you happen to not catch up to your friends specifically, and I'm sure if you play with your friends, they would want to play with you and catch you up. Even if you just play a single player first and enjoy the stories, you could get into them, I think. And as far as the game time goes, that is where it gets a little bit different, because then when you say I don't have as much gaming time as I used to, then it's really harder for me to mention something like Final Fantasy 14, because once you walk away from Final Fantasy 14, it's kind of hard to come back, because you got to like, where was I? Where did I leave off at? Elder Scrolls, not so much. Elder Scrolls is very easy to pick up and play at any time and just go. But FF14 is a little bit different in that aspect. But dude, give at least Elder Scrolls a try. It's always super cheap. I think that'd be the one worth giving a try, because, and I don't know if you're into PvP or not, Kilo, but the PvP in Elder Scrolls is ferocious, very fun.
And I do want to say this, of these games that you've listed, Elder Scrolls is the one I played the most of. Now I will also say this, because I have played Final Fantasy 14. I've only got very limited time of that.
It's so good,
probably an hour. But so here's the thing: is I want to relate first. I completely understand how they look overwhelming or how they look boring, because to me they look both overwhelming and boring. And I'll say specifically Final Fantasy 14. I don't even think Final Fantasy 14 looks boring. I think, and I hate to say this, I think WoW looks boring, even though I know that there's a ton to do there, right? I know that there's a ton of lore, and I actually know a lot about World of Warcraft's lore. I know a ton about it without ever playing the game.
You know about Warcraft, so
yeah. But I could never get into it because I'm not a fan of how the game plays. Now, Final Fantasy 14 is a game that I actually I don't mind watching Final Fantasy 14 being played. I enjoy watching that game. I've watched people play it. I have a friend in Florida who plays it regularly and streams it. But I can understand how that could be overwhelming. Now, Elder Scrolls, let me tell you this really quick. Elder Scrolls Online does not look boring. I love the way that game looks. I love the way it plays. It feels like an Elder Scrolls game. You know what I mean? It feels very much so like an Elder Scrolls game. So I would say I understand that, but also I can understand the aspect of falling behind.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that keeps me from playing certain games, is like when there's a large community like this, and my boys they already spent 24 hours playing the game, and I'm 12 hours behind. I'm like, God damn.
I can see that. I can see that.
I am not going to get there. I'm not going to be able to catch up and be on par with my boys, and that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah. No, because that's a very good point. But, you know what that just reminded me of? That just reminded me of how great Guild Wars 2 is in that particular aspect, because I'm technically extremely far behind multi-purpose, because he boosted every character that he's been playing. I've started from literally, you can call it level 1, but I was like level 10 or something like that when I came back to this character. But I digress. I came back and played all the way up into 80. But when you get to 80, the great thing about Guild Wars 2 is that it doesn't go any higher as far as level goes. You don't need any quote unquote special type of gear. Like, you can get better gear to do more damage, yes, but you don't need any special type of damage or special type of gear to do an absurd amount of damage in order to do the content of the game. You don't need that. And that's what makes Guild Wars 2 more special and probably easier than all three of these that we mentioned, Final Fantasy 14, WoW, Elder Scrolls, because of the fact is you can just play through the story, get to 80. Once you get to 80, they give you some gear that's good enough to play any content in the game, except for the extreme hard content. But you get that gear. Yeah, you got to work for that a little bit more. But it's much more approachable. So that's why I would suggest, out of all these you mentioned, maybe Guild Wars 2 will probably be the better one. But it is like Final Fantasy 14 and WoW, and it's tab target. So I don't know if that's the aspect that you find to be boring about these particular MMOs, but let us know so we can continue this conversation, because I do think it's a good one. And again, Ain't nothing wrong with trying to expand your horizons. I think everybody should at least try something or anything new that they're not used to.
It's crazy that you said expand like that.
Moving on to the news in the Polow way, I guess, if you will. Let's talk about the news, Tel. And the first news topic we want to bring up, again, shout out to Kilo for dropping these news articles in the Discord. Make sure you join our Discord. It'll be linked inside of the description of this video and the show notes as well on the podcast version. He dropped an article about Sony expanding PlayStation. Now, what's interesting about this is that there was a job listing. The article that we are referencing is listed into the description of the video in the show notes. But it is an article where it says there's a job listing for a senior director, multi-platform and account management specifically. And it describes that there are a variety of responsibilities specific to Xbox and PC. The successful applicant will lead a team that includes senior managers involved in liaisoning directly with Xbox, Windows, PC platforms like Steam and Epic Game Store to build sales and relationships. PlayStation says that the applicant will oversee out of year, and this is quote, this is from PlayStation, oversee the out of year mid-range commercial strategy for PlayStation Studios titles across non-PlayStation platforms, driving long-term revenue growth and audience reach. Furthermore, the overview describes specifically moving PlayStation Studio software titles beyond PlayStation hardware, listing Steam, Epic Games, and hear me out, Tel, Nintendo Switch, and as well as Xbox consoles too. Tel.
So I have some really interesting thoughts about this, right? The big thing I see with this is that while hardware can be very important, and I'll say this, I think Sony will always have the edge on hardware. It's going to be very hard to beat Sony specifically on the console hardware, because they just also, while Microsoft is a huge corporation, Sony is a huge media specific corporation when it comes to movies, everything, right? They have a ton of things backing them. But what Microsoft has is software, and they are a huge software publishing company, and they have these studios that they've purchased and bought to build all these gaming platforms on. And I feel like they built such a diverse portfolio of games to be able to publish, and then they said, hey, let's put them everywhere. And not necessarily everywhere, but let's put them in places where people can buy them. I
just think with what Microsoft is doing with completely basically eliminating the fact that you would ever need an Xbox, because like you said, they're so far behind in the console wars, and that all started with the Xbox One, being with that infamous press conference or showcase of Xbox One where they talked about TV and basically steered away from games, which was unbelievably ridiculous. They lost from there, and they started to, like, PlayStation started to catch up at 360 because 360 was blowing PlayStation out of the water when it came to PlayStation 3 versus Xbox 360. But like, I think it's genius, and people probably won't like this, but we're not here for them. I think it's genius for both Xbox to publish games on PlayStation and PlayStation to publish games on Xbox, because all that means is that more people can play PlayStation games and more people can play Xbox games. And with Xbox basically owning 20 billion developers now, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but unfortunately closing a lot of them, that is unfortunate. But with them owning so much, it will be kind of hard for anybody on PlayStation to play really great games. However, it'll also be hard for Xbox to make money because they don't have as many consoles out there. So you got to kind of like pick and choose your battles. And I think just everybody being able to play anything anywhere is how games should be anyway.
I do think that the idea of Xbox's consoles going away is something they have in mind.
You think
I'm
so?
Not 100%. I do. I think they have it in mind. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to pull it off, but I do think eventually they're going to get rid of the home console. And that's why I think they were mentioning TV and everything, is because I think eventually they're going to try and get it there.
That was like 10 years ago. 20 years ago.
Well,
15
I know
years
like
ago,
Google does it now with the little Google Chromecast thing, but it's not great, right? In the cloud gaming, it still has some latency issues. But I do think that what they do extremely well is that you can have an Xbox or you can have a PC.
And
you know what I mean?
And that's what I think you have to keep in mind. They're not getting rid of consoles. They're still going to develop consoles, but they're going to develop consoles in the way to where they're just PCs. They're just going to sell you a PC, just like what they did with this Xbox ROG Ally thing, which is just a ROG Ally, just with Xbox hardware or software on it.
And that's exactly what I think it's going to come to, is that it's going to be budget gaming, which is going to basically be your console. Mm-hmm. And consoles will still have benefits over actually having a whole computer, right? Because they're focused. They're specifically for this task, right? Versus, you can spend $2,000-$4,000 on a PC and get a higher end gaming experience with the best of the best that Microsoft has to offer.
Right.
And then Sony is going to see that not only does Microsoft have 1 million people playing on Xbox, but there's another 1 million people currently playing on PC as well. And Sony has to want to get in on that. And that's what I would think as a large business owner is that, man, we only have the PlayStation that people can play on for the most part. And then we have some games that are shifting to PC a year after. And some people are going to forget about that game entirely. Yep. But then some people are going to remember like games like, what was it, Stellar Blade? And they're going to buy that game. They're going to play it and it's going to go viral again. It's going to get a ton of sales, right?
That'd be me.
But that's not going to be every Sony first party game.
Right.
So they're going to want to make a transition to where they can be wherever, anywhere, especially someone who's, I'm not going to say they're neutral, but they are more neutral than let's say like Xbox, like Nintendo. Nintendo is kind of in this island where I only say they're neutral because they're not
neutral at all.
No, I'm not saying they're neutral in regard to like,
they're so all about themselves.
I agree, but that's not what I'm saying. When I say neutral, I mean like when you think console wars, people do think Nintendo. But I always I think that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like the people who think Nintendo are so small.
Yeah.
But because Nintendo's over here, you know what I mean?
Nintendo's kind of doing their own Xbox thing. And PlayStation is.
They're always going to have a console. I don't think Nintendo's in the console war. I think that Nintendo's just in a war with themselves. But then you have PlayStation and Xbox, who is always butting heads.
Which is so stupid,
And I think that's what I mean by their neutrality, is that Nintendo's just over there. Yeah. And if either of them can be buddy with Nintendo, say, hey, just put our game on your console, we'll pay X amount. I think that for either of them, it's just another avenue for them to gain those sales or even just get the attention on their game. Let's say you play it on Nintendo Switch and say, man, this game is cool, but the Switch isn't as powerful as the PlayStation. I still want to play it at a higher quality. Yeah. Well, let's get a PlayStation. I've tasted the game a little bit. Let's see what PlayStation has to offer. Even that aspect of it, just to get something out there so people can see what it's like, is another great way to get sales for their main console.
Big time. Yeah, and to put it in perspective, the top selling games on PlayStation, I believe it was last month or the month before, recently, was 3 Xbox games. Xbox published games was the top selling games on PlayStation. Again, it was either last month or the month before. And one of them being Call of Duty, obviously, because they own Activision Blizzard. But it was like Forza Horizon. Forza Horizon was just published on PlayStation recently.
That makes sense, though. Hear me out.
Yeah, exactly. Because like what racing, okay, Sony has a few racing games like Gran Turismo, but they put that game out once every 25 years or whatever the case may be.
And it's super strict.
Yeah, super strict.
You want a fun game that's kind of strict, but not too strict.
Yeah, exactly. Gets you some Forza Horizon, which is a great game, by the way. But Sony had to see that. They had to see like, damn, we are actually giving Xbox so much money because they said, fuck it, let's publish on PlayStation. And it's just, and I think they got a Gears of War special coming out on PlayStation soon too, which I'm all for, man. I'm all about that. Having people who only play Sony game or PlayStation games get a chance to touch Gears of War, that's special. That's truly special because Gears of War is a very special series. I'm all for this, man. I know people ain't gonna like us hearing us say that, but again, this is Respec gaming, man. We just respect games and we want games to succeed everywhere. And the more people playing different games on different platforms and different places, the more money the gaming industry gets, the more games that can be made. So, and hopefully people keep their jobs, because all the layoffs is kind of a little too much. All right, moving on. So you got anything else you want to add to that, or that's it?
No, I'm 100% on board. I agree with everything you said, bro.
Let's go to the second article that Kilo brought to you by Kilo. He says it's the Microsoft reverse plans for the $80 game increase that they issued probably a few weeks back. Now, I believe it was the beginning of July, right, when they mentioned that they were going to increase their game prices to $80. Yep. Now, let's talk about this still. The article is, again, it's from Windows Central. Or is this Windows Central? VGC,
Video Games Chronicle.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The first article is more Windows Central. Whatever. They say, we understand that changes are challenging, and they're made with careful consideration given the market conditions and the rising cost of development. Looking ahead, we will continue to focus on offering more ways to play games across any screens, ensuring value for Xbox players. A Xbox spokesperson said, we are focused on bringing players incredible worlds to explore, and we'll keep the full price holiday releases, including Outer Worlds 2, to $69.99, including the current market conditions. So the game, let's touch on the game increases. They were trying to increase the game prices to $80 across the board. Now they're taking the page from Nintendo Book, who decided, fuck it, we're just going to release games for Nintendo Switch 2 for $80, because guess what? You're going to buy it because it's Nintendo, and that's what they do. Microsoft said, let's get a piece of that. Since Nintendo already took most of the heat, let's do that now. Now, this is what I think. And again, this is with respect, so bear with me, but this is what I think. Microsoft recently has taken blow after blow after blow in the media because of what they're doing with closing and getting rid of, I believe, 3% of their workforce and Microsoft company as a whole, which I think was like 9,000 people or something ridiculous like that. They got rid of so many jobs, and they've been taking beating after beating after beating, closing down studio after studio after studio. And the internet, or the gaming universe, has had enough. They're just like, yo, just all you're doing is just closing everything. You're taking away everything from everybody by buying everything, and it sucks. I'm done with Microsoft. I'm done with Xbox. I'm done with blah, blah, blah. So I think they did the reversal of this price, because they needed some good publicity. Again, this is me being, conspiracy theorist Polow. But that's what it feels like, because I got a feeling after the holiday season, that price is going to go up to $80. Now, while I'm not adverse to gaming companies making more money for the games that they develop, because gaming hasn't increased their price outside of this most recent change up to $70. I don't know, man. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
So here's my insight, right? Outer Worlds 2 is a game that's going to cost to produce about $30 to $40 million, right? $30 or $40 million. Now, it could also be the fact that they're advertising the game, and that's going to cost them another $10 to $15 million to advertise the game. And I think that that's a lot of where the issue comes from, is that the marketing budgets are crazy high.
Yeah.
And when are they going to market it? Are they going to choose to do an additional Super Bowl commercial? Or are they going to do something that's going to cost it even more to advertise that game? And so now that $80 price tag is going to look more enticing to them. And that's what I think about when I think about how these games cost so much. But you also think about, yes, they do put a lot of work in these games, and there are a lot of developers on these games who deserve the pay that they get, and probably more to devise, plan, storyboard, put these games together, every aspect of the game, make sure it's as few bugs as possible. And then, and I'm not gonna make this like a direct comparison, but I do think about like games like Five Nights at Freddy's, which is a complete, indie developer game that put Seth Cawthon at $70 million net worth, and the game has done crazy sales. Not saying that it's a direct comparison, but I think that they can find another way of advertising to necessarily cut sales so that games don't have to cost the $70 or $80 million. This is also, a huge gaming company like Microsoft, who they can use their own media platforms and means to advertise a game without it costing them actual millions.
Yeah, exactly. So my thought process is, outside of that first conspiracy theory I had, the second one I have though is that this is just a way for them to get Game Pass subscribers, because Outer Worlds 2 is coming out on all platforms at the same time. So if you're on PC, you see that $80 price tag, you're going to go, wait, if I get Xbox Game Pass for $1 a month or $1 trial or whatever, I can play it for a full month for free, quote unquote, free. Same thing with PlayStation. PlayStation's like, I don't have a Xbox. I could get it on PlayStation, or I can get it on the PC. And if you don't have a PC, then you're paying $80. You're giving Xbox $80, which would greatly benefit Xbox, because either you sign up for Game Pass, which is something that they're trying to build, or you pay $80 for the game. But I don't think you necessarily have to spend $70 million on the game to make it good either.
Yeah. And if you think about it, right, this game Outer Worlds 1 sold 4 million copies, right? So that means that this game, if they do bare minimum what Outer Worlds 1 did, they're projected to, if it's selling at $70, projected to sell for $280 million. Now, obviously, there's going to be cuts in there that they got to divvy out and whatnot for the actual production of the game and whatnot. But you think about the overall cost that they recoup in that, they are certainly going to cover the cost, I imagine. But there are, like you said, exactly, they don't have to. You think of Clair Obscur, the sound design in that game was impeccable. The gameplay in that game was fresh, renewing, and also impeccable. So no, you don't have to actually spend $70 or $80 million to produce a game and up the actual cost of that game. You can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you think the game, Nintendo and just the game industry want it to go up to $80 now though?
I think that, so I like I said, I do think that because of things like advertising, yes. I don't think, and that's the thing, is that advertising is going to be what costs the most. And that's why I do think that certain smaller games, right, what they do is they will do things like what you may experience. You'll get a invite to come play the game. Can you stream it for us? Now, that's going to cost significantly less than saying like, hey, I'm going to run a commercial on 5 different channels every hour. Right. Sure. Every hour, I'm going to run a commercial on 5 different channels to advertise my game. We're going to do that for 2.5 months before the game releases. Yeah. How much does that cost if each channel, each advertisement is $10,000? You know what I mean? Yeah. For 2.5 months, for 3 months, you're doing that. And then you got
IGN ad space and.
Right. Yeah. You have to pay for all of that. Sponsorships. Hey, thanks for Outer Worlds 2 promoting this or sponsoring this part of the video. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's something that they will do, and that's going to cost them money. Versus they could just, and I hate to say it, but yes, streamers exist. Utilize them. Yeah. And put money in the streamer's pocket. Say, hey, look, $100,000. Can you stream my game? That is. And I'm saying you give it to a big streamer, like let's say, and I'm not even sure if Ninja
is crazy. That would be absurd, by the way.
I'm just saying anything, right? But you're putting it in front of 12,000 people at a time, 24,000 people at a time who are likely to buy your game. Those 24,000 people are likely to share information with at least one friend. So that's basically 50,000 people. You know what I mean? that's a large group of people that you can almost guarantee that will be interested in buying your game.
So what you're saying is eliminate the broader sponsorships, the commercials, the ad space on gaming websites that nobody read anymore, with respect. But just give it to the audience.
Yes.
Let the audience be your advertisers.
Exactly.
I think that still can be very, very expensive though, because while it's not 100,000, obviously, but given 25 streamers $25,000 to advertise or to play the sponsorships, that can lead to a whole lot of good or a whole lot of bad. And this is why I say a whole lot of bad. The reason why I say a whole lot of bad is because when streamers take that sponsorship, they don't have to say necessarily good things about it. They can stream it and it could be absolutely awful. And a bunch of that 50,000 people that you talked about can see a terrible experience of it, and that can ruin their sales. Wow.
100%.
When you have a commercial or you have the ad space on IGN, people just see, oh, this game looks interesting. I should give it a try. I should buy it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a double-edged sword with the way you're talking about. I just think that the harder it gets to make games, and I mean, I keep thinking about stuff like Cyberpunk. While Cyberpunk didn't launch the best, but I keep thinking about stuff like Cyberpunk or places or cities and countries that don't cost as much to live in like the US do, because I think Outer Worlds is developed in the United States for the most part, and the cost of living, and then in California maybe is where Obsidian is, maybe, which the cost of living we know there is extremely high. I think if you just, and I hate to take away money from the States, but you outsource it to Poland and places outside of US, I think you can make a game for cheaper. You know what? Speaking of it, Space Marine 2 did that. Space Marine 2 came out and I think it was $50. It was one of the most popular games from I think it was Saber Interactive or something like that. And they sold 4 or 5 million copies, and they made so much money because where they developed it was so cheap. It was just so much cheaper. So I think if you if you plan better, do a better business, you wouldn't have to increase the prices. But I think eventually they're going to have to be 80 because the technology is getting harder to develop with, and
Yeah, and I was going to say, where's Larian Studios from? Belgian. They're Belgian, right?
Yep.
So like they made a phenomenal game. And it was not $70, right?
I bought it early access for 40.
Right. And that's not to say that you should necessarily outsource, right? Because like I said, I do think that with time and in the future, because I don't even necessarily think games are becoming harder to develop. I think that the quality that people expect from certain games is increasing, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mentioned earlier, Five Nights at Freddy's, that game was not a quality game. You know what I mean? The game with the quality that game presented was a surprise. It was an experience, right? That was the quality that you got out of that game. Now, when you get Outer Worlds 2, what are you expecting? You know what I mean? That is where you kind of have to put it in. You want the size of the game to be massive, but you also got to think about the fact that you have to condense that code. But we have to take precautions on the way there. Is basically what I would say.
And thank you for wording out exactly what I wanted to say. Just take it slow, man. Just take it slow. I do think though, when Grand Theft Auto comes out, that is where the entire gaming sphere is going to change as far as pricing goes. Because what's going to happen is Grand Theft Auto, if it releases and it's $90, but it also has, it's as beautiful as it is, and it's as detailed as it is, it's as deep as it is, that's going to set a new standard. And that,
but hear me out, and I say this with the most possible respect.
With respect,
Grand Theft Auto deserves it.
Yeah, 100%.
in every regard, because and while Grand Theft Auto might not necessarily be in my top 5 games of all time, I think it deserves.
Yeah, no,
it deserves a solid spot because of. Go ahead. I wasn't saying you were saying that.
No, I was saying that. I'm just wanting to clarify. I'm saying that because that's what I want. I want Grand Theft Auto 6 to set itself at $90, so it can't. Sorry, y'all won't like that, so forgive me. But I set it to $80 or $90, so it can set that expectation that if you want to charge $80 to $90, you gotta be Grand Theft Auto 6 levels of quality. You know what I'm saying? You gotta actually put effort into the game and detail and love, like they did.
You know. And I love that you even mentioned Grand Theft Auto, because we're gonna talk about that in the actual critical hit when we get there. But yeah, bro, a game like that deserves every aspect of that $90 price tag, as long as it lasts as long as it does and plays as well as it did.
People are going to hate us for that take. Sorry. With respect. All right. Now let's talk about a couple of new and upcoming releases really quick. Grounded 2 is out this week. By the time you're hearing this, it's already out. It is in early access or Xbox game preview. Grounded 1 was a very popular and well-respected game. Grounded 2 looks just to be more grounded, but better. You get mounts and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So I'm excited about Grounded. Am I excited about Grounded 2? No, I'm not going to play it because I don't like spiders. And but I'm happy that it is it does have a 2. Now, Wanderstars, it comes out August 1st on Nintendo Switch only. Here's a synopsis for Wanderstars, the game we talked about at the beginning of the show. Wanderstars is a turn-based RPG with a roguelike elements where you make your own attacks by combining words to make your own fighting techniques. Learn new words to collect, combine, and experiment to discover enemy weaknesses, synergies, and strategies that will help you win your battles. The story of Wanderstars follows Ringo, a young martial artist looking for her brother, and the Wolf, a mysterious scoundrel running from his past, as they join forces in an unlikely partnership to collect the pieces of the Wanderstar map. Oh, that's it. Sorry, I thought it was a read more. To collect pieces of the Wanderstar map. So you're basically just collecting a piece of the Wanderstar map. Yeah, this one, when it hits PC though, I'm definitely giving it a shot. For sure. Are you going to play Grounded 2?
Yeah, I'm going to play Grounded 2. Mostly because the kids liked when I played Grounded 1.
Yeah.
And they were well, Leia was tiny. And what was that? That was only about what, 2 years ago, maybe, I think. But she was just smaller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that they will really like it, and Apollo really enjoyed Grounded 2. So I will probably most likely, well, I'm not gonna say probably, I'm gonna play it, and they'll be enjoying watching it. So
you have Game Pass, don't you? Or did?
I'm sure I do. I don't ever turn it on, but I'm pretty sure I do, because Apollo plays games on Game Pass. So I'm pretty sure I got it.
Yeah. So I mean, you just booted it up there. You enjoy it there. All right. Cool. All right. It's time for a critical hit.
Now, this is the favorite part of the podcast for me. Now, you want me to take point on this?
Yeah, of course.
All right. So the concept behind this, I was scrolling through Facebook, which I sometimes do, and I see that Elden Ring Night Rain has a new DLC coming, which is basically going to be more bosses, as we talked about before, but they're also going to be implementing a duos mode in this DLC, so it's a lot easier for you to get in your duos. Meanwhile, the modding community has made it possible for you to play with 6 people in total in your party. And that's where I got this idea, where it's like DLC and modding communities and how these kind of things work together. So I'm going to pass the first question to my brother. I'm going to ask you, Polow, what do you think about, DLC and modding in general?
It's some of my favorite things. However, it's some of my mining is my favorite thing only when I play the base game all the way through as intended as it's supposed to be played. Let me give you an example. Cyberpunk 2077 has 1 billion mods right now. I have yet to download it because, for one, I think the game is just so perfect as it is now after its levy of updates. But levy of DLCs, I should say. So I digress. I still haven't downloaded any mods, but you can go and download a bunch of mods that just makes Cyberpunk an even better game. Like, for instance, the flying cars that you saw in the E3 trailers back in 2013, you can actually mod those into the game. And while I find that to be cool, I think the DLC for Cyberpunk in itself, the free DLCs you get from CD Projekt Red, all the like free content, missions, upgrades, like for instance, they just updated to 2.3 right now, which has more cars and a few car missions. I find that to be my more favorite way of playing, unless I'm playing a Bethesda game. With respect, Bethesda isn't known for making the most non-buggy games. So
literally,
there is some times where the modding is necessary, unfortunately. And Bethesda is one of my favorite developers because they make some of my favorite games, i.e. Skyrim and Oblivion and etc.
All time.
Yeah, so I do have to mod my Oblivion, or I do have to mod my Skyrim to get the experience I want within those games, unfortunately. And Starfield, for instance, I know people hate Starfield, but I absolutely love Starfield, but I've modded it and I had a blast with some of the mods that I played in it. And I kept it like realistic to what the game vision is still, but it just made the game better for me personally. Modding is great. I think the modding community deserves a Respec badge for to be honest, because they're just dope. So what is your thoughts on it?
No. I love everything you said. Now, what I find interesting is that my first experience with modding was in the Don't Starve game. Oh. And it was before Don't Starve Together came out, right? Mm-hmm. So Don't Starve Together was the 2-player version of it, but Don't Starve Don't Starve Together, or Don't Starve had a mod where you could play with other people. Okay. They also had custom characters that was in the modding community with custom like traits and whatnot. That was really cool. And to even be fair, I do have other modding experience before that, but it was like Pokemon Game Sharks and stuff like that, which that was more hacking and like cheating, and I don't really like cheating. Yeah. So but the actual mods for the games I thought were extremely cool and really creative, and I really enjoyed that. It added another layer of depth that I thought was really cool, because not only was it building on what the original creator had, but it was, individuals' actual creativity. So it's like you could see the creativity in the community that the builder or the creator helped make. But also, and I know this is crazy, right? Because I know this is a wild thing. While games back in my day when I was younger would come complete and you could play it for hundreds of hours and never have to worry about purchasing anything. I am not a person who hates DLC.
Either.
I think DLC is a thing that is so cool, because what it does on top of having a game, and only when games are done extremely well, you know what I mean? When you have a game that you can already pour 100 hours into, and then they drop DLC, you're like, oh my God. Yeah. They just extended the life of my favorite game. Are exactly. You serious?
And that goes to show what we talk about a lot here, and that's just showing the respect to like the developers. When they drop that DLC, when you buy that DLC, yes, it's helping the publisher. And and with respect, I'm not a big fan of publishers, because I do think they ruin a lot when it comes to the video game industries and how games are developed. But the developers get the support from me whenever I buy that DLC. And I would gladly do that for a game I love. I am known in our little circle of friends that will spend money on a game that I love, even if I don't even play it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because I want to support that developer. Like, for instance, the back and forth we go with Legal, one of our good buddies of ours. He uses Game Pass constantly, and I always say, man, support the developers. So I do by paying for my Game Pass subscription and playing these games. Like I would rather pay full price for a game just so I can support a developer, even if I'm not going to play it right away or right now. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I feel. But I am not adverse to DLC either. I feel the same exact way you do, because that's the perfect way of putting it.
And I 100% agree with you. And I'll even say this. I remember I had a conversation with a coworker a while ago when I used to work at Best Buy. The guy talked about how he hated the fact that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet had DLC. And I said, Pokemon has always had DLC. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, when you bought Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, or you bought Pokemon Red and Blue, right? What did they come out with after that? Pokemon Yellow. When you bought Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, right? What did they come out after that? Pokemon Emerald. Did you buy Pokemon Emerald? You did, didn't you? You still bought the DLC. But you had to play through the DLC from the beginning. All they did was do minor graphic updates, and they added a couple of new things in Pokemon and a little bit of lore. And I said, you've been buying DLC the whole time. They just told you it was a different game with a different name on it. Right. So when they came out with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and they said, hey, you can buy the Crown Tundra DLC for $40, the game was $60. I bought both of them to begin with. I got the DLC for $40. And the DLC didn't come with just one DLC pack. It came with, in 6 months, it came with one story that came with its own little slew of Pokemon, and then a whole nother story later that came with a whole nother slew of Pokemon. And more story, more lore building on the game that also had graphical fixes, bug fixes, that kind of stuff. And not to say anything like that, but I'm just saying that a lot of times, and I'm saying specifically for that scenario, you were already buying DLC, and it's not even to say that was a scenario for everybody, right? That may not be the scenario for everybody, but the concept of DLC, when you buy a part 2, ideas may have continued or grown or anything. I'm not saying specifically that, but I'm saying it's a similar concept. But we have this idea of DLC being this bad thing, like developers didn't finish the game to begin with. Yeah. So they provide DLC. But I don't necessarily think that's the truth. I think that when developers don't finish games to begin with, they do updates.
Even if it was true, so what? If you're giving me a 40, 50 hour game, but you had to take this little 10-hour piece and polish it up a little bit more, add a little bit more to it, fix it a little bit better. It wasn't ready for the launch that these ridiculous publishers set you up for, and do this. Let's break it out and sell it. I'm okay with it. I know that's a very unpopular opinion in this gaming community, and I know you're all probably rolling your eyes and turning off the podcast like these guys are fucking crazy. But with respect, nobody's rolling their eyes. But with respect, I think developers getting the support they should. It's worth it, man. It's totally worth it. I even like the fact that Starfield and even Bethesda, I even like the fact that they decided to make modding a part of their, not just a part of their game, but their main, some would say their main focus, because they came out with the creation, Bethesda Creations or whatever, which is a whole storefront of modders who put their mods on sale for like Bethesda points or whatever, creation points or whatever the fuck they're called. And you get to, if you're a modder, there are people that made a living off of selling mods for Skyrim through this whole little section, which I find to be so cool, because guess what? I think about people like Tell, who is an aspiring developer who may one day create a mod for something. Why wouldn't I want my family to go make some fucking money off of his work? I'm okay with that, bro. Like, I am okay with buying some Bethesda points and buying this fucking mod that is like a whole DLC for the game, because guess what?
And that's a perfect Polow way. I ain't gonna lie to you. Go ahead.
I'm paying for this content that somebody worked hard on.
And I would like to say, I do think that goes into the next part I was gonna go with, the benefits of DLC and modding, right? Is that 100%. You've said it several times already. You're supporting the creators. You're supporting the developers. You're supporting the community that made a game that you really enjoy. Now, there are other benefits as well. You know what I mean? And I'll say, like, specifically with games like Grand Theft Auto. Even we just talked about Grand Theft Auto. They have a huge modding community on top of their DLC. They have both DLC and modding, and it's something that you actually can meld together. In the game, you are playing your modded aspects of the game in the DLC community. There's I can't even remember the rapper's name, but I know it's a rapper. There's a rapper. T Grizzly has his own Grand Theft Auto server that makes him money, and I'm pretty sure it's modded up. to the T for exactly what he wants it to be for role playing. And that's a convenience that it can only be done via modding, because imagine the developer having to do that for just every individual community when they can let modders have access to that to do it themselves and make it more accessible for the community to actually play the game that they want to sell. You want to sell this game. Those mods made it easier for you to sell.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into what is next here. There are some drawbacks, and let's not get it twisted. We are Respec Gaming. There are going to be some drawbacks to this topic as well. And the drawbacks to modding and DLC. First one, the drawbacks of DLC is when I talk about, and hear me out, I know it's kind of considered different because of the genre of game I play and I'm very versed in, which is MMOs. DLC and MMOs can be great or it can be bad. It's great because of expansion packs. Guild Wars 2 has an expansion pack coming out in October that I'm looking forward to. Great. It's just more story content, more gear, more stuff to do. That's perfectly fine. However, when you talk about Eastern MMOs, which I am very versed in, Black Desert Online, Throne and Liberty, the Asian ones, DLC is a problem because they offer pay to win. And that is the biggest drawback, is the greed when it comes to the publisher and DLC, because you can literally pay for power in a lot of the Eastern MMOs that is just egregious and it's in your face and it's just nasty and it don't feel good. Nobody likes that part of it, right? I hate that part. That part sucks. And as far as the drawbacks to modding, I'm gonna be real with you. Yeah, there are some drawbacks to modding, and I think the only one that I can come up with is the fact that some modders could be jerks and put malware on the computer in their mods. And that's the only drawback, because guess what? You don't have to download a mod. It's free anyway. Yeah. So just don't download it. You know what I'm saying? That's the only drawback I can think of as far as modding goes. What about you? Yeah, and I'll say that with modding as well. The only real drawback I could think of is that I saw a guy install a graphic overhaul for Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and his computer crashed because he couldn't handle his computer. It couldn't follow the regular specs that it said you could handle because the graphic overhaul was so intense. Yeah. And it also could be just the sheer number of mods, but that really is the only thing, is that sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. So it's like you kind of have to just be prepped to be a little bit better than what you already have. But really, I don't really have very many drawbacks for mods, because like Polow said, that's a choice. You made that choice. If it's bad, you just uninstall it. And the drawback was that you waste a little bit of time to install it, I guess. With that being said, what do you think is more impactful? Do you think DLC is more impactful, or do you think modding is more impactful when it comes to gaming specifically? DLC for sure, because it's so controversial. And unfortunately, the gaming industry is not as positive as we are, right? So anything that costs more money to something that they paid money for, they're going to have trouble I guess recognizing that or understanding that, because money isn't easy. And let's make that clear. Money isn't easy to come by. It doesn't grow on trees. Not a lot of people have money, unfortunately. And this is a hobby, a very expensive hobby, even though it's, I think, one of the cheaper expensive hobbies, to be honest, if you really, really think about it. But that's a topic for another day. That they think that once they pay that $60, they just want to get the game like they used to back in SNES days or Sega days. But guess what? Those games were $80 back then. So I just want to make sure that we can't forget that buying Super Mario Brothers on Super Nintendo was $80, or Mario, you know what I'm saying? Like, keep that in mind. Even playing it, I think Nintendo 64, the game was like $65, $70 at the time too. So, yeah. I think DLC is still the most impactful because it's so controversial. Yeah, and I do agree with you. I think, and I wouldn't even say because of controversy. I think DLC is more impactful just because it is more universal, right? It's harder to sometimes mod a PlayStation game
It's easier to mod on PC. And then there's also just the idea that companies like Nintendo specifically, with Respec, they will completely block your game sometimes from modding it if you mod the actual version of it.
And with Respec, that shit sucks.
Yeah. But that, I mean, it also takes a ton of work to even do that. But the idea is that it still kind of sucks that you would mod that. If I modded a game that I purchased, you would block it.
Exactly.
But DLC, on the other hand, is something that even if I don't have a PC, if I only have my PlayStation, if I only have my Nintendo Switch, if I only have my Xbox, if I only had any handheld console, my Steam Deck or whatever, right? If I'm only playing, DLC is going to be across the whole board.
Yep. Yeah. All right, so continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Last part. What do you think the future looks like for those two types of content together?
I think what's going to happen, and this is a testament to Baldur's Gate 3. Again, Baldur's Gate 3 is in my top 10. We got to do a top 10 one day. A testament to Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's, and even Cyberpunk or Kingdom Come Deliverance, just or Bethesda in general. I think the future is that more developers, like those developers that I aforementioned, will release modding tools. And when they release modding tools, will then build a library of people, or not a library, a culture of people that's going to mod the heck out of even more games. Because let's say, I know they came up with the modding tools for Witcher 3, or let's just say, I don't know, I can't think of a game off the top of my head that would benefit from building modding tools. A wild example, the Borderlands 4 is coming out recently. Let's say Borderlands decides to release some modding tools for it, to where you can build your own content for Borderlands 4. Then that means somebody who is aspired to become a developer or a modder or something like that is going to get your game, get your tools, mod something for it, create something great that even the developers see and be like, oh, that's a great idea, and maybe hire you. Like, for example, there's a bunch of people that work at Bethesda now that was hired because they were modders. I think that's what is going to happen. I think you're going to find a bunch of extremely talented developers from developers releasing modding tools for their games. And that they're going to merge together a little bit more.
And I completely agree with you on that, because I'm thinking about this, and you'll be able to understand this as soon as I say it. Warcraft 3.
Mm-hmm.
They released modding tools. We got Dota.
Yep.
Dota became League of Legends. Yeah. Now we have some of the biggest games ever. All three of those games are still being played, but League of Legends is one of the biggest games ever, right? StarCraft 2 is a game that released modding tools immediately. You can make your own playable maps in StarCraft 2. Not only that, I'm not sure if you ever went into StarCraft 2 to even see this, but if you go into StarCraft 2, they have a separate section where it's literally games within the game made by modders. There was a tower defense game I was playing StarCraft 2 that had nothing to do with the actual regular game of StarCraft 2. It was just entirely different. And I do think that at some point, like Polow said, those dev kits that they release, all the information. I just played Dog Walk, where they released the entirety of the code, everything that assets of the game to you, so you can play and do what you might want to do with the code, or tinker with it how you see fit.
Yeah.
That is definitely the future. And I think that, yes, some people are going to be, because it's still an art form, some people are going to be a stickler with their art, and they're not going to want to necessarily let you deviate or mess with their art too much. But I do think that at some point it's going to become
more common,
more commonplace, that it's almost going to be frowned upon if you don't, you know what I mean, let that be a part of it, because now we got to work extra hard to break it, and we don't want to break it.
Yeah. I'm so into the whole modding, man. I do love it. I am, again, y'all are gonna hate me, but I love DLC as well. I will buy that horse armor to support Bethesda. You know, I will buy, like, if I enjoy it. Only if I enjoy it. If I hate it, if I don't like the game, I don't buy any DLC, right? Like, that's just how it goes. And that's how you can speak with your wallet by just not spending money on a game if you don't think they deserve it. If they do deserve it, or and if you can't afford it, if they do deserve it and you can afford it, why not? You know, it's like tipping in a restaurant. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's swing over to Game Over. Now with Game Over, we decided to make it to where we discuss what we plan on playing or plan on doing in this upcoming week of gaming. So for me, I plan. Let me get the notes. Get this ready for the notes here. I plan on continue to play Gear Wars 2. Now, again, the way the Guild Wars 2 is structured so nicely because it has it all laid out for you in what order you should do what. So next is I'm doing Living Story Season 1. I plan on completing Season 1, Season 2, and starting the Heart of Thorns expansion pack by the time the week is over. And I do want to stream more of it on Twitch, twitch.tv/PolowBornFly. So if you're ever able or open to come visit me there, I would love to, play with you guys there. So yeah, more Guild Wars 2 for Polow.
So I actually recorded a video of me playing wanderstars. And I actually want to do a voiceover for that, but you will see me playing Grounded 2. So Polow will probably see it as I'm playing in Discord or whatever. But Grounded 2, I will most likely be playing. And then I have to catch this shiny Wo-Chien in Pokemon. So I will be also doing Pokemon Terror Raid battles all week until I can get my shiny Wo-Chien.
Respect developers, respect gamers, and respect the game. Peace.
Peace.